Welcome to Sterling Falls, where fresh starts meet deep secrets and unexpected connections. Christopher Hamilton, a once powerful CEO from Manhattan, has reached his breaking point. Burned out from the relentless hustle of city life, he decides to trade glass towers and boardroom battles for the peace of a small town. His new project? A sprawling, though slightly crumbling, Victorian mansion in the heart of Sterling Falls. It's his chance to start over, but he soon discovers that change doesn't come easy. From the moment Christopher arrives, tensions rise. Harriet Caldwell, a retired architect with a sharp eye and a knack for understanding people, takes charge of the mansion's restoration. But it's not the renovation that stirs the most drama. It's the locals. Chief among them is Andrew McCarthy, a stubborn traditionalist who doesn't trust outsiders, let alone one with big ideas like Christopher. And then there's Khloe Dawson, a fiercely independent organic farmer who sees Christopher as little more than another city slicker meddling where he doesn't belong. Despite the frosty reception, Christopher throws himself into the work. The mansion isn't just a project for him. It's a symbol of renewal. Slowly, he begins small community efforts, like creating a garden on the property, and these projects spark cautious interest among the locals. As the weeks pass, the barriers start to lower. Tentative friendships form, but the road is anything but smooth. For every step forward, there's resistance from Andrew, skepticism from Khloe, and doubts of his own about whether he truly belongs here. But beneath the surface of this quiet town lies a tension that Christopher can't quite put his finger on. The mansion, the people, even the land itself, seem to hold secrets that could either bind him to this community or threaten to send him running back to Manhattan. One thing's for sure, Christopher's journey in Sterling Falls is only just beginning. As the weeks unfold, Christopher Hamilton finds himself drawn deeper into the heartbeat of Sterling Falls. Determined to shed the label of city outsider, he begins to immerse himself in the town's routines, learning its quirks, its struggles, and its deeply rooted traditions. Attending council meetings, mingling at local gatherings, and showing genuine interest in the lives of the townsfolk, Christopher gradually chips away at their initial distrust. But with every step forward, he feels the weight of opposition pressing down harder. That opposition has a name: Andrew McCarthy. A longtime resident and vocal critic, Andrew makes it his mission to paint Christopher as a threat to everything Sterling Falls holds dear. He rallies those who share his fears, warning against the so-called city influence and modern ideas that Christopher represents. For Andrew, Christopher's arrival is a spark threatening to ignite unwelcome change, and he's determined to snuff it out before it can take hold. In the midst of this resistance stands Khloe Dawson, a farmer whose connection to the land runs as deep as her skepticism of Christopher. From the start, she questions his motives, viewing his plans as lofty ideas disconnected from the realities of rural life. Yet, despite her reservations, Khloe can't help but notice the effort Christopher puts into understanding the town. Unlike others who have come and gone, he doesn't just talk, he listens. Their conversations grow longer and more meaningful, with Khloe opening up about the challenges of farming in a world increasingly dominated by big corporations and shrinking opportunities. One evening, Christopher asks her how she's managed to keep her farm running amid such adversity. Khloe's answer is raw and unfiltered. It's a constant battle, she says, balancing rising costs, unpredictable weather, and the pressure of maintaining organic standards that larger farms can manipulate with ease. Christopher listens intently, his respect for her deepening with every word. Khloe, in turn, begins to wonder if perhaps this man isn't the selfish opportunist she initially pegged him to be. But Sterling Falls is a town on edge, and Christopher's ambitious greenhouse project becomes the flashpoint. The greenhouse, a key component of his vision to support local agriculture, is meant to demonstrate his commitment to the community. However, this construction is fraught with tension. Rumors of sabotage ripple through town as shipments arrive damaged. Materials are delayed, and progress slows. Each setback fuels whispers of resentment, with some blaming Christopher's bold ideas for the unrest. Andrew seizes the moment, amplifying his campaign against Christopher. He paints the greenhouse not as a symbol of growth, but as an intrusion, a project that could upset the balance of their town. For Andrew, it's proof that Christopher's promises of community improvement are a facade for personal gain. His warnings grow louder, and more townsfolk begin to listen, swayed by his fiery rhetoric. Through it all, Christopher presses forward, refusing to be deterred. The greenhouse becomes a labor of love, not just for him but for those in town who believe in his vision. Harriet Caldwell, ever the optimist, rallies support, encouraging others to see the potential in Christopher's plans. Khloe, too, finds herself drawn into his corner. She watches him weather each setback with resilience, and her trust in him begins to solidify. Slowly, she allows herself to believe that he might actually care about the community as much as she does. Yet, tensions continue to simmer, and Christopher knows he's walking a fine line. The trust he's worked so hard to build feels fragile, easily shattered by the next misstep or misfortune. Every council meeting, every interaction with Andrew carries an undercurrent of unease. And though his bond with Khloe grows stronger, he can't ignore the shadow of her lingering doubts, or the possibility that her cautious trust could vanish if things go wrong. As Sterling Falls wrestles with its identity, caught between tradition and change, Christopher finds himself at a crossroads. The stakes are no longer just about restoring a mansion or building a greenhouse. They're about proving that he belongs here, that his vision for the town isn't a fleeting project but a genuine effort to create something lasting. And with Andrew's hostility growing, Khloe's guarded trust wavering, and sabotage looming over his plans, Christopher knows that the storm is far from over. Each step forward feels precarious, like walking a tightrope, with the threat of falling never far from his mind. As the weeks press on, the simmering tensions in Sterling Falls reach a boiling point. Christopher Hamilton's greenhouse project, a cornerstone of his vision to revitalize the community, suffers a devastating blow. One morning, workers arrive to find materials damaged beyond repair. Glass shattered, frames twisted, and straps suspiciously cut. What should have been a step toward progress becomes a glaring symbol of sabotage. Whispers of foul play ripple through the town, and fingers point in every direction. At the same time, Khloe Dawson faces a crisis of her own. Her trusted produce distributor abruptly terminates their contract, citing concerns over her farm's reputation. The reason? False accusations of mislabeling her organic certifications. Accusations linked to none other than Redwood Tech Solutions. For Khloe, the attack feels like a personal vendetta, but Christopher recognizes a pattern. Redwood's tactics are all too familiar, reminiscent of their attempts to undermine his Manhattan tech company years before. Determined to get to the bottom of it, Christopher and Khloe join forces. Late nights are spent piecing together fragmented information, digging through records, and contacting Christopher's old corporate allies. Slowly, a disturbing picture emerges. Redwood is funding shell companies to acquire farmland in Sterling Falls under the guise of legitimate investments. Their ultimate goal is clear: to consolidate control, drive out small farmers like Khloe, and profit from the community's collapse. The sabotage of the greenhouse and the smear campaign against Khloe are just tools in Redwood's arsenal. The investigation uncovers more than just Redwood's shadowy machinations. Evidence begins to point to Andrew McCarthy, whose vocal opposition to Christopher's efforts takes on a more sinister tone. Suspicious financial transactions and secretive meetings suggest that Andrew may be indirectly complicit, if not an outright participant, in Redwood's schemes. The revelation shakes Christopher to his core. He had anticipated resistance from Andrew but never imagined it might extend to collusion with the very entity threatening the town. As word of Redwood's interference spreads, fear grips Sterling Falls. Longtime residents grow wary, unsure of whom to trust. Rumors of corporate buyouts and sabotage fuel anxiety, and Andrew's continued denials only add to the uncertainty. Town council meetings become battlegrounds of accusations and strained civility. Neighbors who once stood together find themselves at odds, their unity fraying under the weight of doubt. For Christopher and Khloe, the challenges are mounting. The sabotage has set back construction on the greenhouse, and Khloe's farm teeters on the edge of financial collapse without a reliable distributor. Yet, amidst the chaos, their partnership deepens. They share more than just a common enemy. They share a resolve to protect what they love about Sterling Falls. Late-night strategy sessions lead to candid conversations about their fears, their hopes, and their pasts. Christopher begins to see Khloe not just as an ally but as someone who embodies the spirit of the town he's come to cherish. But even as they work together, the pressure takes its toll. Christopher feels the weight of the community's mistrust and the looming threat of Redwood's influence. Khloe grapples with the pain of seeing her life's work undermined by forces beyond her control. Both are haunted by the knowledge that failure could mean losing everything they've fought for. As the weeks pass, the pieces of the puzzle come together, but the picture is far from complete. Andrew's role remains ambiguous, his motivations shrouded in layers of pride and bitterness. Redwood's presence in Sterling Falls becomes undeniable, but exposing their tactics requires evidence strong enough to withstand scrutiny. Christopher and Khloe find themselves walking a tightrope, their every move watched by a community on edge. The stakes have never been higher. For Christopher, the battle is about more than just proving himself to the town. It's about standing up to the greed and corruption that once threatened his own company. For Khloe, it's about safeguarding her farm, her community, and the way of life she's fought so hard to preserve. Together, they brace for the storm, knowing that the path to victory will be fraught with challenges but refusing to back down. In the quiet moments between the chaos, they share a mutual determination that keeps them moving forward. Sterling Falls may be under siege, but its spirit is far from broken. The fight is just beginning, and Christopher and Khloe are ready to face it together. The tension in Sterling Falls had reached its breaking point. For weeks, Christopher Hamilton and his team had been working tirelessly to uncover the truth, and now they had it. A trove of evidence that could finally expose Redwood Tech Solutions and their enabler, Andrew McCarthy. This wasn't just about saving a town anymore. It was about justice, about preserving a way of life that Redwood had tried to destroy. Christopher and Thomas meticulously prepared for the showdown. Late nights in the mansion's library turned into early mornings filled with caffeine and resolve. Spreadsheets, financial records, and transaction logs painted a damning picture. Redwood had been funneling money through shell companies, and Andrew McCarthy had been the local cog in their machine. He hadn't just turned a blind eye. He'd let them operate in Sterling Falls, hoping to profit from the fallout. The evidence was airtight, but confronting Andrew and Redwood in front of the entire town would be no easy task. Christopher knew this wasn't just about facts and figures. It was about winning the hearts and minds of the community, many of whom were still reeling from the chaos Redwood had unleashed. The night of the town council meeting arrived, and the atmosphere in the modest chamber was electric. Word had spread that Christopher had uncovered something big, and the room was packed, every chair taken, every standing space filled. Locals whispered anxiously, the air thick with anticipation. Christopher stood at the front of the room, his laptop connected to a small projector. Thomas was beside him, holding a stack of printouts, his expression a mix of determination and caution. Khloe Dawson sat in the front row, her presence a quiet but powerful reminder of what was at stake. Andrew McCarthy, however, lingered in the back, arms crossed and face unreadable. The mayor called the meeting to order, and Christopher stepped forward. His voice was steady, though his heart pounded in his chest. Thank you, Mayor Barnes, and thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. What I'm about to share affects all of us, our town, our livelihoods, and our future. With that, Christopher launched into his presentation. He laid out the evidence step by step, starting with Redwood's history of corporate deceit and their pattern of using shell companies to infiltrate small communities. The projector displayed damning records, transaction logs, email correspondences, and property deeds. These documents show that Redwood Tech Solutions has been funding LNF enterprises, a shell company tied to Orson Lell, one of Redwood's longtime allies. From there, the money flowed into accounts managed here in Sterling Falls, including one tied directly to Andrew McCarthy. A hush fell over the room, the gravity of Christopher's words sinking in. All eyes turned to Andrew, whose face had turned ashen. Before anyone could speak, Thomas stepped in, distributing copies of the evidence to the council. We've verified these transactions with third-party auditors. The trail is clear. Redwood used this money to sow fear, sabotage projects, and pressure farmers like Khloe Dawson to sell their land. The murmurs turned into gasps. Khloe's name had been smeared, her contracts terminated, all because of Redwood's interference. The revelation was too much for Andrew to ignore. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "This is ridiculous," he barked. "Yes, Redwood approached me, but I didn't sabotage anyone." Christopher turned to face him, his voice calm but unyielding. "You allowed Redwood to operate here, Andrew. You let them manipulate this town for their own gain, hoping to benefit yourself. You didn't just look the other way, you let them spread their poison." Andrew faltered, his bravado cracking under the weight of the evidence. Finally, he exhaled shakily and muttered, "Fine, I admit it. Redwood made me an offer, and I didn't stop them. I thought it could help the town grow, but I didn't realize how far they'd go." The room erupted in outrage. Shouts of betrayal filled the chamber as locals voiced their anger. Andrew tried to defend himself, but his words were drowned out by the chorus of indignation. Mayor Barnes banged his gavel, calling for order. "Enough," the mayor said firmly, his gaze fixed on Andrew. "Your actions have put this town at risk. The council will take immediate steps to halt Redwood's operations and initiate legal action. And as for you, Andrew, there will be consequences." In the front row, Khloe sat motionless, her hands clasped tightly together. When Christopher turned to her, her eyes glistened with a mix of relief and vindication. Redwood's smear campaign had failed, and the truth was finally out. Khloe's contracts, her reputation, and her farm, all of it could be restored. As the meeting adjourned, the crowd spilled out onto Main Street, their anger giving way to a renewed sense of unity. Neighbors who had been divided by rumors and fear came together, determined to rebuild and protect Sterling Falls from future threats. Christopher stood outside with Khloe, the cool night air washing over them. She looked at him, her expression one of quiet gratitude. "You didn't just save my farm," she said softly. "You saved this town." Christopher smiled, the tension in his chest finally easing. "We saved it together. This isn't just my fight. It's ours." For the first time in weeks, the people of Sterling Falls felt hope again. Redwood's grip on their town had been broken, and Andrew's confession had laid the groundwork for healing. The community had reclaimed its voice, its strength, and its sense of belonging. And in the midst of it all, Christopher and Khloe stood side by side, ready to face whatever came next. The storm clouds that once loomed over Sterling Falls had cleared, both in the skies and in the hearts of its people. For the first time in months, the town breathed freely, its future no longer shackled by fear and deception. The Alcott Mansion, once a crumbling relic, now stood as a beacon of hope, a symbol of what resilience and community could achieve together. Inside its freshly painted walls, Christopher Hamilton surveyed the fruits of his labor. The greenhouse, the crown jewel of the estate, gleamed in the soft morning light. Rows of vibrant herbs, leafy greens, and budding vegetables thrived within its walls. It wasn't just a greenhouse, it was a statement, a declaration that Sterling Falls could weather any storm and emerge stronger. As Christopher stood on the porch, sipping his morning coffee, Harriet approached, her face glowing with pride. "Well," she said with a satisfied smile, "it's done. The mansion's restored, the greenhouse is thriving, and the grant for the community hub is approved. I hope you're ready for a little fame around here, Christopher." He chuckled softly, setting down his mug. Fame wasn't the goal, but seeing this town come together, that's more rewarding than I ever imagined. Harriet nodded, her expression softening. You've given more than just a mansion to this town. You've given it a future. And you've found one for yourself too. As Harriet walked away to oversee the final landscaping touches, Christopher's phone buzzed. It was Khloe Dawson. "Are you ready for the celebration?" she asked, her voice tinged with excitement. "I'm more than ready," Christopher replied, a warmth spreading through him. "Need any help?" "Only if you're up for hauling pumpkins," Khloe teased, and he could hear the smile in her voice. Later that afternoon, the mansion's grounds were alive with activity. Trucks and cars filled the gravel driveway as neighbors arrived, their laughter and chatter filling the air. Tables laden with pies, fresh cider, and produce from local farms lined the newly restored gazebo. The greenhouse was open for tours, its vibrant interior drawing admiring gasps from guests. Christopher greeted visitors alongside Khloe, who had brought her finest harvest to showcase. Her flannel shirt and boots seemed as much a part of her as the fields she nurtured. She moved through the crowd with ease, her warmth and determination shining brightly. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Harriet raised a glass of cider and called for everyone's attention. "To resilience," she declared, her voice strong and clear. "To this town, to its people, and to a future that we build together. Let this mansion, this greenhouse, and this celebration remind us of what we can achieve when we stand united." The crowd erupted in cheers, glasses clinking as the toast was made. Christopher stood beside Khloe, his heart full. The sound of laughter and shared joy reminded him of why he'd come to Sterling Falls. Not to escape his past, but to build something new, something real. Later, as the celebration wound down, Christopher and Khloe found themselves alone on the back porch, the faint sounds of music and laughter drifting through the night air. "Look at them," Khloe said, leaning against the railing. Neighbors sharing ideas, farmers talking about the cooperative, and kids running around the fields. "This is what Redwood tried to take from us." Christopher glanced at her, admiration in his eyes. "And we didn't let them. Because of you, because of this town. And maybe," he added, his voice soft, "because I finally figured out where I belong." Khloe turned to him, her gaze steady but vulnerable. "You've changed this place, Christopher. And maybe it's changed you too." "It has," he admitted, stepping closer. "I came here looking for a fresh start, but I found more than that. I found purpose. I found community. And I found you." Her breath hitched, her eyes glistening in the moonlight. For a moment, neither spoke, the weight of their shared journey filling the space between them. Then, Khloe smiled. A quiet, radiant smile that spoke volumes. "I think we found each other," she said softly. As the night deepened, the mansion stood illuminated, its windows glowing warmly against the darkened fields. Inside and out, Sterling Falls buzzed with hope and possibility. Christopher Hamilton, once a burned-out CEO, had become a part of something bigger than himself. And alongside Khloe, Harriet, and the people of Sterling Falls, he was ready to build a future worth fighting for. The town was no longer defined by its struggles but by its triumphs, and its promise of growth, renewal, and enduring connection. If you enjoyed this heartfelt story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more amazing tales. Your support keeps us going.